Canada is striking back with its own tariff measures in Trump's trade war that he has launched against the world.
Repeated Trump's statement by saying that Canada would be economically better off as a 51st state.
It's crazy.
In English?
His point is crazy. That's it.
Nobody knows this stuff better than me.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do and income than I do.
Nobody knows more about construction than I do.
Nobody knows more about campaign finance than I do.
I know more about drones than anybody.
Nobody knows much more about technology, this type of technology, certainly, than I do.
Nobody knows more about technology than me.
Nobody in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump. I know the H-1B. I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me.
I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me.
I understand things. I comprehend very well, okay? Better than, I think, almost anybody.
And by the way, who knew the other side of the picture better than me? I knew it.
Is Canada on the brink of a historic defense shift? As Ottawa reconsiders its $13 billion F-35 deal with the U.S., tensions over trade and diplomacy reach a boiling point. Will this bold move redefine Canada's global alliances or spark a transatlantic crisis? The clock is ticking and the world is watching. Canada's relationship with the United States has long been defined by mutual cooperation in trade, defense, and diplomacy. But tensions have emerged, and in recent days, Ottawa has signaled a bold and shocking move, reconsidering its $13 billion purchase of F-35 stealth fighter jets from the United States. This announcement, coupled with ongoing economic pressures and diplomatic strains, has spurred questions across the globe. Is Canada truly prepared to sever ties in one of its biggest defense procurements ever? And more importantly, what would such a move mean for Canada's standing on both sides of the Atlantic? To understand the gravity of this situation, let's first rewind. The current frictions between Canada and the United States didn't appear overnight. For nearly 2 years, trade and defense relations between the two neighbors have been on rocky ground. It started with tariffs, most notably, those imposed on Canada's steel and aluminum exports during the Donald Trump administration. These levies, paired with disputes over agricultural quotas and dairy exports, led to widespread frustration in Ottawa. Should we really be this dependent on a single supplier? Became a rallying cry among political leaders. What followed has been a cascade of retaliatory measures and icy rhetoric, culminating in Ottawa's suggestion that the F-35 fighter jet deal, a negotiation that has spanned more than a decade, might not be as locked in as many assumed. As of now, the purchase of these advanced stealth aircraft remains central to Canada's defense modernization program. The plan was clear: acquire 88 F-35s, with deliveries starting in 2026 and a phase-out of current CF-18 jets by the early 2030s. But now that plan hangs in the balance in the wake of new statements from Canada's leadership, statements that hint at both frustration and strategic re-evaluation. Take Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's interview on March 12th. In it, Carney remarked Canada cannot trust the United States on everything, and suggested that major defense projects like the F-35 should be revisited in response to U.S. trade policies. Defense Minister Bill Blair echoed this sentiment just 2 days later, announcing that Canada was actively exploring potential alternatives to the F-35 and had opened discussions with European aircraft manufacturers. In Canada's parliament, it appears the question is increasingly being asked: if Washington continues to squeeze us on tariffs, why should we spend billions to support its defense sector? To this backdrop of trade frictions, Ottawa's consideration of European fighter jets is hardly surprising. Europe offers promising alternatives. The Eurofighter Typhoon, jointly developed by the UK, Germany, Italy, and Spain, has drawn attention for its versatility and lower operational costs. France's Dassault Rafale, similarly, boasts adaptability for harsh climates. Sweden's Saab Gripen, a favorite among smaller air forces, may present an affordable option for Canada's needs. While none of these jets match the F-35's fifth-generation stealth technology, Ottawa may weigh other criteria such as cost-effectiveness, reliability, and public sentiment. In fact, public sentiment may play a larger role than ever before. Resentment over U.S. tariffs targeting Canadian dairy and steel has been growing for months. Many Canadians question why the country's largest bilateral defense contract should remain in place while Ottawa faces economic economic pressure from Washington. For some, the potential cancellation of the F-35 represents a symbolic rejection of U.S. domination. Others argue it's simply practical diversification, in line with Canada's growing trade and defense cooperation beyond North America. But abandoning the F-35 wouldn't be easy. The fighter is used by many of Canada's closest allies, including the United Kingdom, Norway, and Australia. Joining these nations in operating a shared platform means streamlined logistics, joint training opportunities, and greater interoperability in multinational missions. Walking away from this integrated system, especially at a time when NATO seeks tighter coordination, could risk isolating Canada from broader defense networks. On the other hand, turning to Europe could recalibrate more than just Canada's air fleet. Ottawa has increasingly signaled interest in aligning with European markets and industries. There's talk of expanding defense cooperation with the EU, in fostering joint arms projects with France and Germany, and even accelerating free trade agreements with the European Union. For supporters of this strategy, an F-35 cancellation could send a powerful message. Canada is willing to carve its own path rather than capitulate to U.S. demands. It must also be noted that this is hardly the first time Canada has flirted with the idea of Europe-made jets. In the early 2010s, Ottawa explored alternatives like the Eurofighter Typhoon and Boeing's Super Hornet, before ultimately choosing the F-35. Back then, the advantages of integration with the U.S. and its advanced military network prevailed. But now, with trade tensions at a boiling point and the Trump administration's tactics still felt in political circles, those former calculations are being revisited. Still, reopening a defense deal of this magnitude entails significant risks. A new tender process would require starting technical evaluations from scratch, prolonging timelines, and potentially leaving the Royal Canadian Air Force without adequate replacements for its aging fleet. Even so, Defense Minister Blair has been candid. How we are treated by trade and defense partners affects major tenders. We may need a plan B. Such bluntness, combined with murmurs of retaliation across other sectors, has heightened speculation about a possible rupture. From Washington's perspective, the stakes are equally high. Canada is not just a customer. It's a partner within the F-35 program itself, contributing funds and expertise to its development over the years. A withdrawal would send shockwaves through bilateral relations, signaling a deeper fracture in Canadian-American ties. Already unnamed U.S. officials have warned that cancellation could provoke significant repercussions, possibly in the form of new tariffs or tightened cooperation across broader trade and defense channels. Canada will pay a heavy price, one American media source warned on March 16th. But will Canada really walk away? Some experts believe this whole saga is simply a bargaining tactic, a way to force Washington's hand on trade disputes while maintaining leverage in defense deals. Others predict that escalating tensions will push Ottawa toward Europe, permanently reshaping transatlantic dynamics. Either way, both sides are monitoring the situation closely. According to leaks, a final decision may come in the next 2 months. If Canada cancels the F-35 deal, the implications go well beyond fighter jets. It could signify a broader diversification strategy aimed at reducing dependence on the United States. Such a pivot, while strategically bold, is fraught with logistical challenges and geopolitical risks. Alternatively, if cooler heads prevail, Ottawa may decide to stick with the F-35, with the hope that trade disputes can be resolved before irreversible harm is done. So, what will it be? Will Canada gamble on European aircraft, sending a bold message of independence, or will Ottawa negotiate a resolution with Washington in time to salvage its F-35 program? The clock is ticking, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Keep your eyes on this unfolding drama. It promises to reshape not just Canada's defense strategy, but the balance of global alliances for years to come.